Stress? What stress?
That's a great lead-in.
Yep. Ready?
Yep.
You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I'm Bree.
And I'm Rachel.
It is a wild card episode today, which means, what are we going to throw at you today? It is a bit of a follow-up on an episode that we did, I believe, over the summer. Was that last summer?
Yeah, it was.
In the year that didn't exist?
Yeah, I think so.
I blocked it out, but I think it was a good episode.
It did still happen, I think.
I think it did. We did an episode of Stewardship of the Physical Body, and it was a big hit. A lot of body positivity stuff. Great episode. We can link to that.
To go back and re-listen to that as we're coming into bathing suit season again. Yep. It will be always perennially important.
Almost a year ago, because it was right at the beginning of summer.
Yeah, that sounds about right. So anyway, we did that episode on stewardship of the body. And so today we are doing stewardship of your mind and your emotions, because it's 2021 and nobody really knows what's happening anymore. So, Bree, this is your episode. Take it away.
Yeah, so May is Mental Health Month. Is that correct, Sarah?
Oh, also that was the other thing I was going to say. Yes, May is Mental Health Month. That's the other reason we're doing this.
Yes. So I thought that, apropos of May being Mental Health Month, and as sort of a annual follow-up to the Stewardship of the Physical Body episode, this year I want to talk about how we are faithful stewards of our minds and our emotions. I'm sure you'll find that a lot of the content that we talk about today is going to sort of align with what we talked about last year, because I personally feel as though all of the different spokes of health on the wheel are related, like they all impact one another. So some of the things that we're going to talk about today might sound like a repeat, but you know what? It's a good reminder to have, as Rachel said. So before we really dive into it, though, I do want to give a couple of disclaimers. The first of which is none of us, unless I don't know of a social work degree or something that I don't know about from any of you, we are not mental health professionals on this show here. A lot of what I'm going to be talking about personally today is based on my own experiences as someone who was diagnosed with manic depression in 2007. And I've been managing those symptoms ever since at varying degrees of goodness and badness, but I'm in a good spot now. I do know that good German Lutherans don't like to talk about feelings. However, I do want to stress, I want to emphasize the fact that mental illness, there are physical elements of mental illness. Even if, you can't see it, it's not like I have a broken arm and that I have a broken arm, but it's one of those like hidden illnesses with hidden symptoms.
I mean, you can get a bladder infection, and
that is true. That's also
there's a lot of our body that it has to be really wrong for you to see the problem.
Right. Nevertheless, in any case, point being, mental illness is the indication of a broken body, like any injury or physical illness. So in other words, mental illness is very real, and it can have serious consequences if professional counsel is not sought. But the good news is the symptoms are also very possible to manage. So, and you got living proof right here in front of this microphone. I'm just going to say that.
I'm so thankful to you, Bree, for bringing this topic, because I think in the church we tend to think, you're right, that feelings are, something to keep to yourself. They're private, they're personal, and that sick feelings, well, that's not a real sickness. And yet, wellness is not limited to the body. That wellness is something that we experience body, mind, soul, spirit, heart. All of these things are bound up together. And when your spirit is sick, your body is going to be sick too. When your body is sick, often your spirits get sick. One of the lowest points in my life, mental health wise, was when I was recovering from a broken ankle over about 3 months. And about 8 weeks in, I was about as discouraged as I've ever been. So there is so much of an interplay. And I think scientists are only now beginning to acknowledge that wellness is about more than just the cells in your body. It's the spirit that infuses those cells.
Yes. Absolutely.
The mind body connection is so everywhere.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So I am just going to talk about methods, ways, ideas for being a good steward of your mental and emotional health. Guys, feel free to jump in. I am only one of probably millions of people, if not more, that struggle with some degree of mental illness, whether it is manic depression or anxiety or really just any sort of mental illness to some degree. So I am, having mental illness is not monolithic. It can present itself in different ways. And as such, the different ways that you cope with those issues can be different for everybody too. So this is really just my take. Feel free to jump in if you disagree or I forget something that is important. I think first and foremost, as with anything, to be a good steward of your mental health is to be living upon the foundation of, I don't want to say a good spiritual life because that doesn't sound right to me, but by doing things that strengthen your faith. So if you talk about like prayer, like having a strong prayer life and doing routine devotions and like worshiping on a weekly basis, taking the sacrament, stuff like that. I think when you live your life that is takes place upon that foundation, that is definitely one of the best ways, I believe, to steward your mental health. Prayer is huge. And, it's important for others to pray. Like, don't be afraid to ask others to pray for you too. Like, the power of prayer it's palpable. And so I think to sort of be entrenched in this life of faith and doing those kinds of activities is something that will benefit you in the long run for a variety of reasons. But one such way is being a good steward of your mind and your emotions.
We've talked about memorizing scripture, memorizing hymns.
Sarah! He's like, I know all of them.
Memorizing those things. And I mean, it's not just for catechism work in grade school for confirmation. Like if you have these things memorized and you have parts of the liturgy, the daily offices memorized, when you have those really rough moments in life and hard days, which we've all had hard days lately, you have those things already in your head that you can draw up. And you can sing hymns while you're struggling, but you pull something up, you can sing it from memory. You don't have to go anywhere or pull a book off of a shelf. It's right there for you. And that has been a big thing for me in the last year, at least, being able to have this just like repository of things to pull from during
you
those
can
times.
Burst into song while you're washing the dishes. Don't even have to dry your hands off.
When I was doing it.
Well, and I think, Bree, you mentioned worship. It really can't overstate the role of weekly liturgy of the divine service in maintaining your spiritual health and well-being. I'm currently reading a book that I haven't finished it yet, so I cannot recommend it completely wholeheartedly, but I'm loving it so far. James K.A. Smith's You Are What You Love, The Spiritual Power of Habit, where he talks about the problem of this disconnect between what we want and what we think we want. I think I want to eat healthy, but what I actually want is that donut on the counter. And there's this jarring disconnect there. And he, in this book, points out the power of the traditional liturgy, whether you're doing it with an organ or drums, but this gift of liturgy that has been handed down to us that trains our souls to want the right things so that our wants and our values are more closely aligned. And we don't have that painful tension that is going to create problems in our spiritual and in our emotional life between the person we think we ought to be and the person we actually are.
The things that I don't want to do, I do, and the things that I do.
Yes.
We need a new set of wants. And, the worship life of the church over time wears these deep ruts in our soul and sort of gets us more pointed in the right direction. Not that we ever actually arrive on this terra firma, but it is a very emotionally healthy practice, even if it doesn't feel like it. Well, you might be sitting in church going, I don't even know why I came today. And yet you're getting the benefit of it.
Yep.
So because God gives his gifts, whether or not we feel like we deserve them or feel good about anything, he will give those
feel anything at all.
Or feel anything. You could be completely numb. Yeah, you can be sitting there in that back pew in your sweatpants with your unwashed hair, and you're still going to be getting benefit from this.
It's true, though.
Although showering is also great, as I tell my children regularly.
A great segue into our next point about self-care. And again, to reiterate, and I think this is one of the points that I really tried to drive home last year. There are critics out there of what is termed as self-care. I think a lot of people, maybe not a lot of people, but I think there are some misconceptions about what self-care actually is. It's not just laying around on the couch all day watching Netflix in your PJs. It's not indulging in comfort food. It's not going on a shopping spree or 2 or 17, which actually, compulsive shopping is actually a symptom of mania. So you really have to be careful with that. Self-care is getting a healthy amount of sleep. It's practicing good hygiene. It's washing your hair and it's brushing your teeth and, all the stuff we learned in, grade school health class, ways to take care of your body. So it's also things like getting a healthy amount of activity in. It's eating foods that have optimal nutrition for your body. And I'm not going to necessarily quote studies here, but even in my own experience, when I know that I'm exercising on a routine basis and I'm making nutritious food choices, I just feel better about myself. Like that's just what it is. So we talk about a worshipful life. We talk about practicing self-care, taking care of yourself.
Yeah.
But the third option for me is ultimately seeking professional help, right? And that can take several forms. It can be seeing a counselor. It can be participating in a support group. It could be taking medicine. And here's just my quick hot take on this, and I hope to not dwell on it for very long. I've given the ladies my fair warning of this is my soapbox today. Unless your pastor has a background in psychotherapy or social work or anything related to that the psychology field, the psychiatry field, the mental health field, he would not be the kind of professional that I would seek help from personally. The pastor is really there. He provides you with the spiritual care. That's what he's there for. But when it comes to mental health matters, I would seek a true professional in that field. And frankly, especially where medication is involved, I would go so far as to see a psychiatrist. I know some people will take like anti-anxiety medication or just any run of the mill, I think, psychiatric drug. Sometimes people manage that through their primary care physician. And that's fine. That's okay. That's an option. But a primary care doctor is not necessarily going to have a wide scope of what treatments are available out there for mental health. And so, I see a psychiatrist and I know that they're going to sort of be on the cutting edge of what's out there. And that's not really the focus of a primary care guy. So,
well, and counselors as well, there's a difference between counselors and psychiatrists too, with levels of education and ability to even prescribe medication. Not all of them can do that. And I'm going to throw a shout out to a couple of episodes of the Coffee Hour that I'll make sure we get links in the show notes.
Sarah's other show.
I know.
Like the other woman in her life.
We have at least 1 or 2 episodes about when to seek help, first of all, and who you should talk to, whether you should seek a pastoral counseling, psychiatrist help, counseling help, what the difference is between all of that. It's a full half-hour program on only that with, if I'm remembering right, is Dr. Rick Mars from the seminary, who is amazing, and Peter Ill, Pastor Peter Ill. So a lot of really good insights into that. We'll link that in the show notes, so I won't go into all of that here. But it's a wealth of knowledge.
I do want to push back just a little bit, Bree. You said if you are experiencing mental illness, don't go see your pastor. I'm going to say go see your pastor. Just don't expect from him what he can't give. I mean, like if I got a cancer diagnosis, I would go see my pastor and say, Pastor, I need spiritual care. I need prayer. I need, pastoral counseling in this situation. But I'm also going to go see my oncologist.
Right.
So, mental illness, go see your pastor, but also go see your psychologist, your psychiatrist, your counselor, whoever you need to see. But it may be, when I've been at my lowest is when I am the least capable of making appointments. I can't even hold myself to the dentist. The idea of putting myself out there and saying, I'm going to go find a new professional in a new field and it can be very daunting. And so if you are experiencing this kind of feeling and you feel weird about going seeing a mental health professional, maybe start with your pastor, and chances are he'll be able to point you in some directions, or start with your doctor. Just start small, because it's very daunting, especially when you're in a low valley, to think about. For me, when I was going through 2020, I was, even when I perhaps should have, I was unable to connect with a mental health professional, but I did a baby step. I started doing weekly exercise session via Zoom with my sister, and just having somebody to talk to and work out, some small step helped me through a very bad stage. I absolutely respect mental health professionals. My brother is a counselor and a very good one. But if that's too much for you to handle, do something.
Yeah.
Even whatever is within your comfort zone, whatever is accessible to you, do that.
Yeah. I totally agree. I think that the pastor does play a role in that. But Sarah, I'm glad you mentioned Rick Mars, because this tipped me off to something. So we had to meet this year with some of the seminary profs for like vicarage meetings. And one of the things that Dr. Mars made abundantly clear was, yes, you're going to be dealing with people who need help, whether it's psychiatric or therapy, well, any kind of therapy. And he said, don't try to fix it on your own. Like if you can, refer it out. So I guess my point of that is, yes, totally speak to your pastor. But if it requires additional assistance or additional attention, I would not feel surprised or like offended if he says, I'm going to give you the card of somebody who I know that can better help you.
Right. That's a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we haven't said this yet, and I just want to throw this out there too, for people who haven't heard anybody else say this yet. Just because you're struggling with a mental illness does not mean you don't have enough faith. Praying will help, yes,
And God may work a miracle.
And yes,
it is within his job to do if he wants to do it. But
Correct.
It may be that he gives you strength to carry on for another day. That mental illness is like any other illness in that, yes, pray, but also go to your doctor.
Right. Yes. Had to put that out there in case.
No, yeah. I'm glad that you said that, because as we're thinking about methods and mechanisms for being a good steward, for me, for best results, I would do at least 2 of these things. So faith life, focusing on things that improve that area of your life, self-care, and seeking professional help. So like for me, I ain't here to toot my own horn, because like all these things and responsibilities are gigantic pains sometimes. But like, as much as I try to go to church and take care of myself and all of that, like I have a counselor and a psychiatrist. I have one dude who manages my meds, and I have a woman that Matt and I see on a routine basis. We just talk about stuff. So like, it's, I think, one of those things where if you seek multiple avenues, all of those mechanisms are going to sort of build on each other and multiply, and you're going to benefit, I think, more what am I trying to say? The more that you do sort of in this list, the better off you're probably going to be, is my 2 cents. Don't try to, again, like what Sarah said, don't try to pray your depression away. Like, it could happen, but like that, if you're feeling down and sad and all of that, like, yes, pray about it, but don't let that be the only thing. Like, God gives us doctors and medical advancements and people who can help us with these things and live better lives. But I see far too many people sometimes just, say that Jesus is going to take care of it because he's the great physician. And it's like, well, yes, he is the great physician, but...
Or it creates this downward spiral of I'm anxious or depressed, or I have this mental illness and I'm praying about it and it won't go away. What's wrong with me?
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Why don't I have enough faith? And that is the opposite of how it works.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Pray that God will give you the strength to do one thing today that will move you in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Pray that he'll take it away, but pray that he'll give you what you need to do that one right thing.
Yeah, I mean, we should always be mindful that grace abounds. And this kind of goes back, Rachel, to what you were saying in terms of when you're feeling the lowest of the low, you're not going to be motivated to hit these points. Like, for me, sometimes it's a struggle to just get out of bed every morning, much less wash my hair and brush my teeth. Like
that's a triumph.
Yeah. But again, I think that is just another symptom of our broken, sinful world, right? And so we know that Jesus took all that and he nailed it to the cross. And so the last thing that we should be doing, and I'm preaching, I should be taking my own advice here, is like the worst thing that you could do is beat yourself up because you've got dirty dishes piling up in the sink. You've got unwashed hair for the last week and a half. You have to throw away this is mine. You have to throw away a bunch of rotten produce because you thought you were going to use it that week. And
that is not just you.
Like, there is grace in this. There is grace in this. And you have to be mindful of that.
I think you've described most of our lives during the pandemic.
Okay, good. I don't feel so alone then.
The dirty dishes, yeah.
Sometimes I've found that with these things, and these are small ones, but I find myself getting really harsh and hard on myself, and then I sort of have a talking to with myself, and think about how you would be reacting and responding if a friend of yours told you that this was the situation that they had experienced, and would you be like, that is a true failure, boy, you just really did mess it up there. No, you would not be saying that. You would be encouraging them and pointing out that, this is a hard time and, that's okay. And so anyway, we are often so many. I don't know if men are as hard on themselves as women. Maybe they are.
I think they are.
They are. They are.
Don't talk about it as much. But anyway, the internal monologue is really vicious sometimes. And like reframing that to how you would speak to your friend or your sister if they were telling you about this is really nicer.
Be at least as courteous to yourself as you would be to, your next door neighbor. That's a corollary of love your neighbor as yourself. Although I'm sort of challenged by your words, Erin, because when I, as the mother of teenagers, sometimes my role as their mother is to say, "You've been in bed too long. You stink." Not in a spiritual sense, but in a physical sense. Now go wash your hair. You'll thank me for this later. And sometimes that's my role, is to be that not quite prophetic voice in someone's life.
I think Erin's point is, maybe don't do that to yourself. Get out of bed, Rachel, you stink. Like, that's not what we want here for you. But it's important, like, as we're talking about this in, the inner monologue. I love that. I'm going to steal that forever now. It's also important, I think, to surround yourself with family and friends who, quote unquote, get it. I grew up familiar with mental illness just because of my family life. And I think that has allowed me to have a greater, I don't know if it's tolerance or like empathy quotient, or I don't know what it is. I feel like I was far more familiar with what mental illness was in second grade than my peers. Like that's
I was.
That was just the childhood that I lived. And I know people who get it, like myself, and I know people who they don't get it. They maybe still think that mental illness is like an it's all in your head thing, or it's not real, or, suck it up, buttercup, get over it, life's rough, get a helmet sort of posturing. And you're going to have people in your life that are like that, whether it's a coworker or a family member or a friend. You're going to have people that they just don't get it. Maybe they've not experienced it for themselves. So it's important, I think, to surround yourself with people who understand the struggle of what it is to have to be diagnosed with a mental illness. And sometimes in the interest of helping, they might say or do things that are actually harmful, right? Mm-hmm. So I think in those instances where I'm hitting my low, or I feel a manic episode coming on, Matt is my husband, Matt is that sort of person, right? He's the one who observe my behaviors and be like, you know what? Take a breath, do some coping, because I feel like you've got some mania coming on. So it's good, I think, to even have that deep, intimate level of accountability with at least one other person. So have trusted confidants, put people in your life who can empathize and who can say or do things that are actually helpful, and maybe try to have some understanding for the people who can't or don't.
Mm-hmm. Have people in your life that you're willing to hear the truth from, even when it hurts. Because that's often what it takes, is someone not only that you can tell anything to and know that they will not judge you or stop loving you, but that whatever they tell you, you can hear. Mm-hmm. And it sounds like Matt is that for you, and that's awesome.
Yeah, he is. Every day, man. Every day.
My husband is like that as well. We've kind of worked to get to that point, and it's taken me knowing myself and understanding my own triggers for things that will set me into a bad place, and also knowing what will help. I tell him, if I'm in a terrible mood, either feed me because I might just be hangry, or, get literally like pick me up off the couch and make me go outside and take a bike ride or go for a walk or something, because I know that is one thing reliably. I will never be in a bad mood after I've been outside, regardless of what I'm going through that day. And sometimes I can't do that on my own. Like I need someone to like almost physically drag me, because I just can't.
Sure.
But I know that about myself, and having someone that knows that about you, and you're able to voice those things about yourself to somebody else and be very vulnerable to somebody else, and be able to trust that they're actually going to be there for you as well. The three of you have been part of my little group of confidants since we started this podcast. But, I have other friends who also deal with anxiety and deal with these just mental struggles. And we're on Facebook Messenger almost constantly. And we're just like, hey, I'm having a bad day. Can you pray for me? For these things specifically. And then like we'll check in on each other, because we mutually understand that this is just a struggle, and we all just kind of get it.
I love how Christians, when they say, I'm struggling with this, will you pray for me? Also embedded in that is that, will you listen to me speak honestly about this for a little while I explain my prayer request in great detail? And then you can pray about it. That's great. But then also I will have been honest about it with one living human being.
Love it. It doesn't happen very much anymore, but there has been more than one occasion where I'll be interacting with my husband and I'll say or do something and he'll go, you sure you taking your meds today yet? Like, are you sure you did that? Have you skipped? Like, you need that. You need that. Of course, it's scary when I'm like, yeah, what's going on, man?
Why
you ask? So those are my little tips and tricks, I think, for being a good stewardship of your mind and your emotions. I'm gonna make this final plug. I implore you all, because I just am a firm believer in the power of therapy. I think counseling is for everybody. You don't necessarily have to have a diagnosable mental illness. I don't think you necessarily have to have a broken marriage or a broken family. You don't necessarily had to have gone through a significant trauma in your life. My husband and I, just full disclosure, we see someone on a monthly basis, and it's not a surprise to me that our marriage has significantly improved since then. However, finding the right counselor for you and your family is not always the easiest thing to do. So if you hear this episode and you're like, you know what, I've been thinking about this, maybe I should look into it. Here is what my admonitions are to you. Definitely look into, if you're employed and have benefits through your employer, you can definitely look into whether or not they have an EAP or an employee assistance program. I know that we at the International Center have access to that, where you can have 6 sessions covered for you in the year. So that's built in. Does your company offer behavioral health insurance? Will they cover psychiatric appointments? Or is it a specialist and you have to pay an additional copay? Can you find somebody who accepts the insurance, a therapist that will accept the insurance that you have? Can you cover that copay with the flexible spending account card? So I think there are a variety of factors that go into what's available to you.
More and more insurers are including mental health services in their covered items. I remember a few years ago when we had reason to have counseling, that we were doing the first few months out of pocket, and that was $100 a session, which is a good deal, all things considered, well worth it. But then I found out we could apply insurance, and that went down to $40 a session. And that was so much more doable.
Right.
So that even if even if you're only able to take out part of it, get it to, the cost of dinner and a movie, totally worth it.
Mm-hmm. That is one hang up, I think, that depending on insurance coverage. So like for me, my psychiatrist is covered by my insurance, so I don't have to pay a gigantic copay. We have to pay out of pocket for our therapist, and that's $130 a session. Thankfully, our flexible spending account will cover that, so we're not truly paying quote unquote out of pocket, but that is something to be aware of. I am not on the up and up about subsidized mental health. I mean, obviously we have subsidized physical health resources out there. I don't know much about mental. I know that is becoming more popular, like an urgent behavioral care kind of setup. But definitely I would encourage you to do your homework, see what's available out there to you. And in closing, it's probably not in closing. I say in closing.
It's definitely not in closing.
We're going to talk for another 20 minutes. You know that.
Yeah, it's not happening. I just want to be clear. You don't have to see a Christian counselor. Like, if that's your preference, that's fine. There are plenty of people out there that are available to you. But I often see this stipulation in a lot of places where make sure you find a Christian counselor to help you. And I'm moderately disappointed in the fact that people have to make that distinction. In Matt and my situation, our counselor is not Lutheran. I don't think she's even a Christian. I think she's another monotheistic. I think she's Jewish. I'm just going to come out and say it. I think she's Jewish. But she is still fantastic. She's good at what she does. And in fact, I have found that with her being sort of like, quote unquote, an outsider. So like we talk about church stuff a lot. We talk about Matt being in seminary and some of the developments that have to go on there. And I have to say that her complete and utter removal from the call process and how vicarage assignments work and etc. has actually been helpful in getting us additional perspective.
Yeah.
So point being, if you want a Christian counselor, do it. Like, if that's what you prefer, that's what you're comfortable with, do it. But don't rule out non-Christian counselors or people who don't sort of bill themselves as a Christian counselor, because you're going to miss out potentially on some really excellent opportunities.
Well, that's a really great point. Someone who bills themselves as a Christian counselor. There are people for whom that's part of their marketing thing. And that's great. I've mentioned my brother is a counselor. He is a Christian. He's a very devoted Christian. And yet nowhere on his marketing materials will you see that mentioned. Right. It infuses every aspect of who he is and what he does, but he's not using it as his marketing, go-to line, because he sees that professional role as being something different. Yeah. So don't assume that just because you're not looking for a quote unquote Christian counselor that you're not going to get a Christian who is a counselor.
Also a counselor. Right. He's a boy who's also my friend, but he's not my boyfriend.
Right.
It's one of those.
And I think it's more important. We talked about this on the coffee hour episode. I mentioned it's more important to find a counselor who works with your personality, with your relationship personality, and is open to talking you through your issues from your worldview. So, like Bree, in your instance, you have someone who works with you and doesn't push their own worldview.
Right.
That would be a problem if you're going to someone.
Yeah, there are people out there.
Oh, you're thinking through this wrongly because you're a Lutheran. Like, that would be a problem. Right. But finding someone who works within your own scope of your beliefs and things, and maybe they won't be a Christian, and that's fine. And the other thing is that sometimes you do have to be careful with Christian counseling because they may come at values and things from a Christian point of view that is not our Lutheran theology. And that might put you in a different tailspin of like, this doesn't jive with my own Lutheran doctrine, but we're both Christian. And now I don't understand why these things don't make sense. So just being aware of the theology behind a counselor who bills themselves as a Christian, where they're actually coming from in that Christian counseling, because it may not actually be as Christ-centered as we would want it to be as Lutherans.
more important, I think, is what you're saying, Bree, is to have somebody who respects the fact that you are a Christian.
Yes.
Who isn't going to try to
Absolutely.
change that or treat your faith as a pathology.
Right.
And there are people out there who would treat it
Right.
that way, and those should be avoided.
And I think any therapist that's worth their salt, so to speak, they're not going to push solutions to you. They're not going to get solutions in front of you. They're going to talk to you so that you come to your own conclusions.
Mm-hmm.
They're not going to conclude anything for you, but they're going to talk to you until you reach a conclusion about what a specific issue might be. I mean, we've talked to our therapist about things that I think would make any secular person's head spin. Because, you know, I obviously the LCMS is very conservative in their values and the things that they talk about. And our therapist never makes us feel like, oh, that's part of the problem.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't have to worry about that necessarily.
Right. Yeah. Well, I want to go back before we close to 2 points, and one was where you said you think counseling is for everybody, and that seems like a really radical, revolutionary statement there, until you think about all the ways in which you do other routine maintenance on your life. Mm-hmm. I don't just go to the doctor when I'm sick. Right. I go for well visits. Mm-hmm. I don't just go to the mechanic when my car won't start. I go for oil changes. I don't just go to the dentist when my teeth are falling out. I go for cleaning every few months, or at least I'm going next week. It's good. So there is no reason that you can't think of your mental health in the same way. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That I'm going in for routine maintenance on my emotions, and so that I'll have a relationship already set up with a professional, so that if I get sick, that I already just know who to call, where to go. There's nothing wrong with that. And I appreciate the encouragement. I think that will be something that after we move, because we're moving soon, that I will put on my list of things to do. Find a new doctor, find a new dentist, find a new mechanic. Let's see about maybe finding a counselor that we can just establish a relationship with. Well, why not? Let's make it normal.
It's good to have that third party. It's good to have that mediator sometimes, especially if you're doing couples counseling. I joke around because I cannot begin to tell you how many situations Matt and I have been in where I'll have an issue and he'll be like, well, and he'll try to fix it and he'll be like, well, have you tried XYZ? And then we'll fight about it, right? And we'll crop up again and he'll be like, well, have you tried XYZ? And we'll fight again about it. And then the issue will crop up again and it'll come up in a session with our therapist. And my therapist will be like, oh, well, have you tried XYZ? And I'm like, you're brilliant. Why didn't I think of that? And then like Matt's over here like face palming and he's like, hello, what's going on? And vice versa. I can't tell you how many times where I'm like, dude, I told you that a month ago. What the heck? It's fun.
Yeah.
Good to have a mediator. And
it really is. You need that third party.
Yep.
The other thing I want to go back and discuss, if we're done with most of the rest of the content of this episode.
Yeah, I think I'm at the bottom of the page.
I want to talk more about self-care, because this is something that, professional help is great. Let's face it, not everyone who's hearing this is to the point where they're like going to find counselor on your list of post-move activities. And in fact, honestly, I might chicken out of it. We'll see. I hope I don't.
We're going to make sure you do it.
But self-care is something you don't need to put yourself on a limb to do, that you can identify ways to take care of yourself that are really helpful coping strategies. My mother, who's a very wise person, she has a list of things in her brain that she knows always make her feel better. And if she's feeling really down, shout out to you, Mom, I love you very much. If she's feeling really down, she will go through this list. 10 minutes, walk outside. 10 minutes, sit down and play piano and sing hymns. 10 minutes, clean up the house. Just do something to make the space nicer. I think there are 4 or 5 things on this list, but she just goes down the list. And so I was curious about, and I make my kids make lists like this too. What are 5 things you can do when you're feeling down that are guaranteed to actually make you feel better? And I think everybody's list is a little different. So I'm going to put it out there to each of you. What are 5 things on your self-care checklist that when I'm feeling down, if I do this, I will perk up just that little bit?
Wow.
Sorry, put you on the spot.
No, it's okay.
I hope that all our listeners out there are grabbing a pen and a paper and writing down your 5 things on your self-care checklist.
We can let it marinate for a minute.
Let it marinate.
I might find more, and I'm gonna like subdivide one of them to make it 2.
Yes.
Well, and it's not totally subdividing. So I already mentioned exercise, and that can happen indoors too. Like if it's raining outside, going to exercise at the Y is also an acceptable option. So some sort of physical movement is probably my number 1. My number 2 is like opening the door to outside and just breathing fresh air. That is massive. I don't know how many times I did that during pandemic year of literally just like standing on my front porch and just smelling outside air. Decluttering is another one of mine too. Like literally 10 minutes of this is a mess and it's been bothering me for the last 3 months and it will literally take me 5 minutes to clean it and I haven't done it yet. So I'm going to do it right now. It feels so much better. Yes, singing hymns or some sort of music, listening to music, playing music, singing music. Definitely another one on my list. Talking to a friend. I'm going to put that as my 5th one. There may be another one. Talking to a friend. Can I put 6 down? I just thought of another one. Drinking coffee. Yeah.
Drinking coffee.
Well done.
Or at least like opening the bag and smelling the coffee if it's like 9 o'clock at night. But yes, those things for sure. And I want to throw this out there while the rest of you are thinking. While we were dealing with working from home and the transitions of pandemic life and all of the unknown, I remember the point when I was like, I need something. I need a goal, like a daily goal of something I'm going to do that will help just like keep me in a better mental state because it was getting really hard. And that thing was showering every day. Like if I did that every day, I was just going to be in a better mood. Because I think at that point I had gone probably 5 days. I had showered, but I wasn't putting on different clothes. I was like in my lounge clothes all day. And
okay, this is the mom in me saying ew.
It wasn't the same.
But you worked through it. That was I should have just stifled that mom inner monologue there.
But I wasn't. I was showering.
Like it wasn't the same clothes, right?
No, it was different clothes.
Thank goodness.
Just like t-shirts and lounge pants every day.
Okay.
And
all right, that's fine.
Every day it was like every other day or every 3 days or something. I was home by myself. Nobody cared, but it was making me feel bad. Like I did not feel good about myself, and I was like, "This is a thing I can do every morning." And I think it will help. And it did. It was, I had to do that for my mental health. And I knew that. So once I figured that one out, that was very useful. And I mean, now we're back in the building, so I have to like shower and change my clothes every day because people will start to avoid me if I don't.
So mine, I don't know, without something to write on, I'm not sure I'm going to grab them all. We'll see how many I get to. But very similar. Go for a walk. Just like you were saying, doesn't matter how I start the walk, I always finish it in a better mood than when I started. Also, sing a song. So it could be, sometimes I'll sing a song while I'm on a walk if it's a really rough day.
Multiply those coping mechanisms, Aaron. Good.
Yep.
You're learning.
Like coupons.
That's right. Layer them up. So sing a song. Similar, again, talk with someone. So it could be call, but basically tell someone about whatever it is that's troubling me. Because usually at some point I know what it is. And then it's like I get in this mode sometimes of, I don't know if it's a shame thing or whatever, but like you don't want to tell someone about it. It's always better once I say it, then it's not weighing on my spirit anymore. Also, I often find that for me, could go either way. Sometimes it's that I need to, usually if I'm really troubled about it, it's that I should actually go spend time with someone. And so go find a friend to be with and have that, or go, drive out, see my parents for a weekend or something like that. But have that close time with somebody. Occasionally, if I'm really just worn out by overstimulation of too much time with people, then I need the opposite of I need some downtime, alone time. But this year that's not been a problem this year. And usually in those cases, I know what it is I need. I'm like, I need to just be quiet alone for a while. So that's usually pretty easy. And then sometimes it's also just like, do something different. Part of why I'm feeling so frustrated with this is that I've been at it for 4 hours straight, and I've literally been sitting in the chair for 4 hours straight trying to figure out how to make this thing cooperate. And it's that I need to stop and step away and do something totally different with my mind for a little bit and or body and change the pace. But that one's it's not an easy 10 minutes of singing, playing a piano sort of thing. It's not as clear an ingredient for a successful recipe.
It's more intuitive. Yeah. Well, on my list, since I think Bree's going last here, I'm going to second, third, whatever we've said. Exercise is so key. Only for me, I like running. I like all exercise. If I can get it, walking is great. Yoga is fun. Lifting weights, good times. But nothing blows off stress and despair like a long run. So I do that if I can. Agreed on cleaning up the space. Totally. My kids ask me, why do you make your bed every day, Mom? You're just going to get back in it at the end of the day. And I'm like, making my bed tells me that the chaos monsters don't win. It takes me 30 seconds to do. But today, chaos loses. Same goes for washing my dishes and cleaning wiping counters. Wiping counters, incredibly therapeutic. Let's see. I need to go work in the garden if I can, if it's gardening season. If not, I might be sitting over a seed catalog with a legal pad planning next year's garden, because I find that getting dirt under my fingernails, sun, rain, wind, all of that, and feeling connected to the earth and to the green growing things is really, really a pick-me-up. Let's see. I like words. So if I'm really feeling down, I can usually jumpstart my cheerfulness if I take a moment, half an hour to read something. Or half an hour to write something. Yeah, it may be a haiku. It can be as simple as that. I wrote a very cranky limerick a couple of weeks ago that really helped. It was addressed to various world dictators and the U.S. Secretary of Defense, expressing some of the feelings I have about my husband's ongoing deployment. You know what? A cranky limerick made me feel better.
I paid good money to read that thing, by the way.
I'll send it to you privately.
Yes!
The final thing that I have just within the last few months found is very helpful is I keep in a notebook what I call an anxious list. Because in the back of my head at any given time are big things on the back burner that are just creating this low level hum of anxiety and or despair. For a long time, it was, we haven't found a new dentist yet, or tax season is coming, or, I haven't filled out that paperwork from that thing. And it's usually things that if I actually sat down to do it, it would be done in an hour or maybe even 5 minutes. But I never think about it at the right time. And when I do think about it, it's never the right time. And so simply taking 5 minutes to write down everything that is making me anxious, that maybe I am not able to do anything about it right now. But if I get it on paper, it's manageable. It exists. And then later on, I can go back and update it and be like, dude, I totally filed our taxes 3 weeks ago. Yes. I don't have to worry about that anymore. There may be new items to go on the anxious list, but simply saying the name of the thing that is humming in the back of my brain and making me feel bad takes away some of its power. So that would be my number 5 thing is maintain an anxious list and update it occasionally, because if you've crossed things off, it's really encouraging. And even if you don't, it's good to just see the scope of it. And that way, when you have, half an hour sometime, you can address something and know that it will make you feel better. Okay, that's mine. Brie.
Some scrolls will be longer than others, am I right?
Yup.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure I endorse all of those ideas. I probably do some of them myself, but I'm going to be different, obviously, because that's my brand. Actually, no. Okay, so Sarah, you said standing out in the sun. That's a good one. I like to eat a piece of fruit. Like I just like, or just some fresh, a serving of fresh produce. Like
Excellent.
does wonders. Like it just picks me up. Because then I feel like this sense of like, wow, you just ate something healthy. Good job, dude. What else? I like to watch videos on Instagram of pottery, like pottery being thrown and cake decoration.
Yeah.
That is specific and wonderful.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And there's so much of that on Instagram. It's wonderful. I love that little corner of Instagram. I also sometimes watch hilarious Vine compilations. R.I.P. Vine.
R.I.P.
More hilarious. And then I don't know how many that was, but this is my last one is so on Sundays I teach high school Bible study, and that's like the one thing that I look forward to. If there's nothing else to look forward to in a week, like teaching Sunday school and just hanging out with those students and like cackling and trying to preserve my youth. Like that that energizes me. That jazzes me up. Like teaching them about Jesus is important too, let's be honest.
Yes.
Can I just say I wish you had been my high school Sunday school teacher, because
don't we all?
my life might have gone in a slightly different direction at a couple of very crucial points had I had Brie Guzewski as my Sunday school teacher.
I hope that's a good thing.
Yes, it's a very good thing.
Apologies in advance to all you parents out there. And that's it.
Thank you for the good ideas. Yeah. I've got some more things to add to my coping self-care list now.
Well, this is Mental Health Month this May. And I do want to, I'm sorry, I've thrown in so many plugs into this episode. I have one more plug for the coffee hour. Sorry. We have Mental Health Mondays. Every Monday. We've been doing this for over a year, maybe 2. I don't remember. We have Heidi Gaiman on, Deaconess Heidi Gaiman on every Monday, and sometimes some special guests to talk about mental health. We've talked about a whole slew of stuff, and we have this summer, and we're talking through some different topics. We're giving Heidi a break this summer and talking through some different stuff. But I think we're talking about emotions again, like sometime this fall, and I cannot wait because I love talking about emotions. But anyway,
I love feelings.
Feelings are great. But you can find those on our website. If you just go to kfuo.org and search Mental Health Monday, or I'm pretty sure it's kfuo.org/Mental Health Monday, and you can find all of those mental health episodes if you want to just like power through all of them, because Heidi is fantastic. A lot of what I know about mental health and I'm able to share with other people is from her, from actually doing these things on the radio. Nice. I've learned so much from her. So, ladies, we would love to know your list of 5 things. If you want to share that with us in the Ladies Lounge group on Facebook, you can join us in that group. I will also try to remember to pose that question on our Instagram page, so you can also share with us your list of 5 things that help you feel better on our Instagram page as well. You can follow us there at Lutheran Ladies Lounge. You can find all of our Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcasts at kfuo.org/Lutheran Ladies Lounge, or on your favorite podcasting app. You can also download the new KFUO Radio iOS and Android apps. Super exciting stuff. You can find us there as well if you want to have one place for all of your KFUO radio stuff. You can just download that app, and our podcasts are there too. You're listening to the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast. I'm Sarah.
I'm Erin.
I am not a doctor.
And I'm going for a run in like 5 minutes. So have a great day, everyone.
Views and opinions expressed on the Lutheran Ladies Lounge podcast may not represent the official position of the management or ownership of KFUO Radio, the Lutheran Church Missouri Synod. The Lutheran Ladies Lounge is produced by KFUO Radio and available at kfuo.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Join our community on Facebook in the Lutheran Ladies Lounge.